There were 13 interactions before the wheels came off in this last month.
It's not like we have a bad relationship with SASSA.
They were so happy with what I said, they even put it up on Twitter.
We didn't want to be seen to be stalling the process.
When I went to school, 97% was a pass, not a fail.
Yes, that is true.
No, Minister, talk to me.
Be committed to your own commitments. What happened? Those commitments came to zero.
It's a Social Security Agency deadline 2.0. And another disaster in the making.
This country is gripped with panic because we are left with very few months to be running on the ground. My trust being that the CEO will also indicate if this impasse continue to exist, what is the alternative? Because definitely we cannot wait for something we do not know. We must wait, we must do work as fast as possible, but at least a fallback plan must come.
What we've asked when we had our meeting is for the Treasury to give us time frames, because we are aware that time is not on our side and we don't really want to cause that panic out there to the beneficiaries.
Obviously some progress has been made, but we're not anywhere near where we want to be, and time is closing in on us, and indeed the chairperson is correct when we say we are now facing a panic.
Parliament, Wednesday, 1st November 2017. MPs have given Social Security Agency, SASSA, and the South African Post Office a deadline of 6 p.m. They must announce a deal on who will take over social grant payments from April 2018 or else.
SASSA and the Post Office, assisted by National Treasury, actually had 2 meetings. And there is a scheduled meeting that was supposed to start at 2 o'clock this afternoon, so that by 6 o'clock they should at least come to us with an agreement.
But a last-minute flurry of meetings yields nothing.
It should be noted that, as I said, this process is a SASSA CEO, is a SASSA process where, depending and deciding as to who should be sitting in the bid adjudication or bid specification committee, it is essentially SASSA's responsibility. Now, whether we get invited or we invite ourselves is another thing to a meeting, of which obviously we were not part of, and we left that to SASSA to undertake, and when need be, would obviously stand ready to grant or not to grant a deviation if requested.
The deadlock follows many such meetings over the preceding months.
There were 13 interactions before the wheels came off in this last month. 13 interactions where you dealt with SAPO, you discussed capability, discussed capacity, you issued a letter to them which SAPO, I believe, is legally binding. You've done all these great things to move us towards you, and now suddenly it's fallen off. Why has Treasury not been involved at any of those meetings?
Shockingly, it emerges that technical terms from both sides had never met.
The technical teams of SAPO and SASSA have never met since the consultations happened. All that has happened to date, and which we also picked up in trying to facilitate the discussion, that the technical teams from both banking side, who understand the ABC of banking, who understand the ABC of grant management and grant administration, that there hasn't been a discussion where there can be sharing of information in terms of what each of the parties can contribute in making sure that grants are paid on the first in a manner that is seen to be a free flow.
But a defiant social development minister sweeps the accusations under the rug.
Technical committees have been meeting, chaired by the DG in the presidency. Also, there was a workshop, at least that I attended, that was for social development, SASSA and SAPO. So I don't understand what it means that they have not met before.
So how did it come to this? April 2017. The Constitutional Court extends SASSA's contract with Cash Paymaster Services for a year. This is after the Social Security Agency fails to appoint a new service provider before CPS contract expiry.
It's good for us to read everything if we read a letter. The last sentence says, SASSA has an obligation to ensure that any contract for goods and services in accordance with a system is in accordance with the system which is fair, equitable, transparent, competitive, and cost-effective. And I can tell you where this comes from. It comes from the judgment of the Constitutional Court.
MPs have been touting the South African Post Office as the ideal candidate. Such a marriage would give post office coffers a much-needed boost.
We've got to invest in capacitating the state. So the assets must be assets that live in the state. I would find it very difficult if we spent money on an outsider as opposed to giving it to the state. It doesn't matter whether it's SAPO or the department, but it must be within the state, because delivery of social grants will be here long after all of us have left. So that's why I'm saying to me, primary, I think the instruction that we should be giving to everybody, as far as possible, it must be in-house. If it is in-house DG, I don't think that there's a requirement for fairness and equity.
We wanted these things to start testing this system, because we can talk about them, but it's only when you put them in action. Whether they are done by Rolls-Royce or Skorokoro, but they must be put into action. Because that's where you can test them and then correct them. And in a collaborative manner, not in an obstructive manner or proof to fail. We don't want SASSA to fail, and I'm sure SASSA doesn't want SAPO to fail. And that's why they are saying improve there, in a collaborative manner.
Even National Treasury wants to give the Post Office a chance to prove its capabilities.
SASSA then wrote to us asking for a deviation. What deviation was it for? It was deviation to engage with SAPO, which we duly granted, and then so that we didn't want to be seen to be stalling the process. Basically, that process was undertaken in July, and SAPO, as we heard this morning, was then confirmed and discussion between SAPO and SASSA took place.
The Post Office itself has been clamoring for recognition.
We do not need to register as a merchant for the payment of SASSA grants. So the disqualification on the basis that we can't register a merchant is not with any substance. Bear in mind that the receipt of social grants is predominantly a one-way transaction, the drawing of cash on that ability. We have 5.7 million customers in Postbank. We have 5 billion of their money on deposit, and we have 8 billion in cash and near cash instruments with banks and treasury. We are the highest capitalized bank in South Africa. We have the highest capital adequacy ratio of all banks, and we're the 7th biggest bank in the country. And we've been around, not for that long, Chair, only 142 years. SAPO, and going to the Postbank capabilities, I think there were misconceptions about our capabilities. We are indeed capable of issuing interoperable cards, and we already do that.
Does CPS have a banking license? You say SAPO don't, and that's why you don't like them. Does CPS have one? Do they have a banking license?
We've got 2,500 points of representation, which no one else has. So whatever your distribution capability is, we can enhance that by that many points of payment.
This was said under the background of SAPO being one, sponsored by Standard Bank, two, having more than 5.7 million customers, three, handling over 18 million transactions a year, four, of experience in financial transaction, five, Post Bank has a net of 3 billion rands, six, full membership of Visa and MasterCard, seven, more than 2,500 outlets across the country and in many other critical areas of focus.
The SAPO CEO is optimistic about their chances.
In the spirit of collaboration, we sit here offering to accept an appointment to provide the banking and card production services, which will require the integrated system development that we have. And we would argue that at a minimum, those go to the core capabilities that the post office can offer.
But why is the minister seemingly dragging her feet?
It's not like we have a bad relationship with SAPO. We are trying to work together. And surely if you work together, you don't agree on anything. Members of Parliament sitting here don't agree on everything. So we must also be given an opportunity to iron out areas where there is disagreement. But moving forward with the process, we are moving forward.
The minister insists she views the post office in a positive light. Yet on October 30th, 2017, she announces that 3 out of 4 SASSA services would be put out to tender.
Everyone has been talking as if they are the only ones who want the post office here. And we've been stating categorically that the post office is a state institution. We are prepared to work with them.
With the crosshairs still fixed on her, Minister Dlamini endeavors to ward off the criticism.
I thought we have not come here to start from scratch, because we are going to create a doubt in the whole system. For instance, we are saying we are not going to tender anything. The post office has said it's going to use the services of Gemalto. The Treasury, we have evidence. They have been invited to procurement meetings. And yesterday, the way they spoke was like we've not been inviting them.
However, not everyone is in favor of appointing the post office. Transform RSA warns that bullying tactics are being used to bypass suitable black suppliers.
Returning the post office to its financial stability is very important, and it's incredible to even say that we must return the post office to its financial viability and stability. But what is going to happen? Say the grant administration process as well as payments of grants is given over to the post office. At today's date, the post office does not have its own internal system by which it can do the administration. What is going to happen is post office will become a front entity by which other service providers behind the curtain and in the back office systems will be able to control and administrate. We are going to be giving over post office information, which is grant beneficiaries, data and information. over to a third-party proprietor, software owner, and systems developer company. In this case, it will be Gemalto or Standard Bank and whoever comes in on board to become the de facto service provider. And that information integrity and South Africa's information will be at risk. So the issue is not about taking away the independence and actually the empowerment of post office to become the single point of grants payment. The issue relates to what was the processes and procedures undertaken to ensure that post office becomes ready in terms of its systems to can pay out grants. What we know for sure is there is already companies that have already been engaged, that are already now being primed to become contractors and suppliers for all the systems and technology. And it is not a fair process because it is going against what we stand for, which is radical economic transformation. This process should have been made transparent. The post office, if it wanted to build its own independent system, it should have been engaging South African black software companies as well as South African-based companies in software technology and solutions, as well as not only in software, in banking systems and technology, in ensuring that there is an efficient payment of grants, and that can be done using the proprietary technology that is South African-based.
With mere months left to replace CPS, MPs had hoped the joint sitting of committees would break the deadlock. Instead, it only served to confirm their worst fears.
So you're actually working with this company that has no contract. And all they blackmail you with is we have an evergreen contract. Anyway, as an addendum, how many evergreen contracts do you have? Because that's the apartheid legacy we have, evergreen contracts.
I think what we have to do is to check our database because...
Don't tell me you don't know. I mean, really. For you to manage the institution, turn it around, correct the wrongs, you should at least have on your fingertips some of the key elements and areas. All right, no, that's fine. If you don't have it, I'm sure what the comrades have requested, I would make an addition. We want a list of all the evergreen contracts. When they were started, how much has been incurred so far, and when is your plan to terminate that? I think under the PFMA there's nothing called evergreen contract. It's a legacy of the apartheid past, which you are carrying forward with you.
We will provide them.
A process that's going around in circles. SASSA evidently throws junior staffers to the wolves, and MPs have had enough.
My worst fears have come to life. I told this meeting, the minister was saying that come 1 April 2018, we will see CPS left, right and center paying these grants. And I said then that there was an effort which was being engineered to derail the post office. And precisely that has happened today.
We must make sure that their feet is kept to the fire and that they must come and tell us what exactly they've been doing. So sending junior officials to Scopa is just not going to fly. And the public and the media and Scopa all together must make sure that we do not allow Treasury to get away with whatever tricks they want to pull now.
It's as if SASSA is not taking the Standing Committee on Public Accounts seriously, or the Concord for that matter.
The Constitutional Court gave an order to that minister, did not give an order to any other person. That minister has to do that order. Now, if you remove her, who is going to implement that order? Who? She has to deliver on the order of the Constitutional Court. What will I say to the Constitutional Court? That they say this minister must deliver and I shift this minister? What is that?
Stakeholders even lament the absence of former Treasury Chief Procurement Officer Skalk Heeman.
SCOPA is a structure that is, must be respected by all. And if SCOPA has called you, we expect any government institution to be able to ensure that they comply with that call. Now, if you send juniors, it's quite clear that you still undermine SCOPA. And they must call a Skalk Heeman. It's very important because he's the one that has been dealing with these matters all along. He must be there, he must go and account.
So I would like to get an opinion from Treasury once they've been through this process as to whether or not they can tally up all the costs of all those meetings, all those flights undertaken, all the accommodation, etc., if it was necessary, what that figure is, and was that fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Because if we had one of the entities not playing ball and not wanting to make this work and involved in malicious compliance and obstructionist activities, then I would like the accounting officer of that particular entity to be held accountable for all those costs, because nothing has been achieved up to now.
There was a lot of push for the process to be made so fast within SCOPA hearing processes. The question we must ask is, why is SCOPA now starting to interfere and start to actually give directive as to which entity? For instance, they brought in the Treasury Department and they insisted that the South African Reserve Bank must become a player in this whole process of determining how the transaction must be taken away from SASSA and then be transferred into post office. And in between there, who are the interest bearers? Who are the interested parties who have an interest in this whole process?
Social grants provide a safety net to more than 17 million poor South Africans. This calls for a secure system capable of handling over 10 billion rand per month.
So to date, I can confirm that where we sit is a SASSA-led process. We obviously are worried that firstly, grants should be paid and should be paid at the least cost come 1st of April next year, and that if there's ways and opportunities to save from the 200 million that we spend every month, we should do that. Also request both SAPO CO and SASSA CO to actually indicate the key issues that seems still to be an unfortunate area of disagreement. We emphasized as the facilitators and as the meeting, the meeting noted there should be willingness from parties. If willingness is not at the center, then we can as well call it a day, because if there's no willingness to work together, it's going to make it difficult for us. Second, we also noted that it is important to note each other that in this case, there are two governmental bodies that needs to work together and that they should in any way collaborate.
The ball is now in the Reserve Bank's court.
We further call for the South African Reserve Bank to move with the necessary speed in issuing post office a banking license. We find this delay unnecessary and unpatriotic. Since the Post Bank has met all the requirements defined by the South African Reserve Bank, the delay is a ploy to cast doubts amongst many South Africans on the capabilities of the Post Bank to execute its commercial duties. It is unfortunate that the delay has indirectly benefited major banks that already occupied the Post Bank space, and this makes us to question the integrity of Reserve Bank itself.
While MPs also look to National Treasury to intervene.
I think there is progress which is being made so that we follow the correct processes. But we agree also with the officials that time is not on our side. We must try and resolve these things as soon as possible. We will be happy, DG, Pesca Treasury, and the CEO, and the SAPO team, CEO and the chair, if we can get a clearer way forward, maybe by Monday, so that we can table something to the IMC, because it is ultimately the forum which take.
But is Treasury passing the buck? as its DG hints at the need for higher political involvement. This would mean the intervention of Interministerial Committee Chair President Jacob Zuma.
This process up to now lacks a firm discussion, guidance that is needed from the IMC, that should the two ministers facilitate and make sure that at least from a high political, political directive is given to the two teams to actually move on the same page, because currently that's not what is happening.
I have talked with the Minister of Finance. They are finding a solution on one part of many things that are being resolved. The relationship between the post office and the department. And this is being addressed. The Minister of Finance is meeting both departments to discuss and solve that problem.
With Scopa nipping at their heels, SASSA and the post office could still get their shaky marriage going. But how well that turns out, given the dismal track record to date, remains to be seen.
The post office and SASSA debacle is a demonstration that the state is at war with itself. And in the end, workers and the poor are at the receiving end. The extraordinary zeal demonstrated by Minister Dlamini is to exclusively maintain the procurement rights for private sector to such an extent that they opted to mislead the parliament and the public, claiming that SAPO, which is a state entity, under the auspices of the Department of Telecommunication and Postal Services, has no capacity to render social grant services.
Post office, if it says to the public that it's got readiness, if it told SASSA that it is ready to go and start deploying, let them do a trial run and show through a trial run that they are capable. And not only that, they must demonstrate as to who will be now the systems developers, the systems integrators, the people who would ensure that the grants are delivered on time to its grant recipients.